Why do you think it's okay for the rest of your life to be reporting to somebody and to have to clock in? You think it's fair to only have 2 fucking days to chill with your family and friends? Do you know that there's entrepreneurs? Do you know that there's men that's retiring at 30? How does that not inspire you, bro? Why the fuck would you want to live like this? If this doesn't light a fire under your ass to get the fuck out of your 9 to 5 as soon as possible, and I don't know what the fuck will, fellas. What is my purpose? How can I get out of my 9 to 5? What can I do to replace this income? Don't fall into the system. They want you to be average. You only get 1 life. Don't be thinking y'all job care about you. They don't give a fuck about you, my nigga. They will let you go tomorrow. You're not in control, bro. You're dependent on somebody else that don't give a fuck about you. YouTube, what's good? It's your boy Cry. Welcome back to another vid. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for the algorithm. And make sure to follow me on all platforms at I Am Cry. Today we got a great one, and I'm gonna share with you guys 4 harsh truths of working your 9 to 5 and why it's essential to get the fuck out of your 9 to 5, fellas, right? I'm never gonna be one to shame, you feel me, if you went to school to work a 9 to 5, went to school to be a doctor, went to school to be a lawyer, or you genuinely enjoy what you do. This is not for you. This is more so for the individuals who are unsatisfied with what they do for work and or how much income they're making, right? It's a lot of stuff that I don't think that a lot of men take into consideration with their life and with their future. And I'm gonna share those with you guys today. The number 1 harsh truth every man must accept is freedom. Fellas, when you're working a 9 to 5, man, unless you working, even when you're working remotely, bro, you really have no time and location freedom. Right? Most of y'all aren't working remotely. And even if you are, you have to clock in at a certain time, clock out at a certain time, work for a certain amount of hours. You're locked in at a specific location. I preach a lot about your location and being in an environment that's going to push you. A lot of y'all can't even move because your job is in a specific spot. You have no freedom to move to a different area. No freedom to work at night if you want to, work in the morning if you want to. Like, you got to clock in at 9. You got to clock out at 5. Who the fuck wants to do that for the rest of their life? Why do you think it's okay as a man for the rest of your life? It's okay if you do it for a period of time, but why do you think it's okay for the rest of your life to be reporting to somebody and to have to clock in to receive income? That is fucking insane, right? It's literally modern slavery, fellas. You basically have no mental capacity and mental freedom to self-improve, right? I can recall, man, being young, man, and, watching my dad. I lived with my dad for a majority of my life. And my dad worked probably like 50 hours a week, right? And he would work out with me in the morning. We would go to the gym, and then he'd go to work. And then once he got home, he was exhausted, right? Him and my stepmother. I would just see him being so mentally exhausted and mentally drained from work that he had just come home in a fucked up mood. Rather, he started arguing with me. He started arguing with my stepmom at the time, all because he's just mentally exhausted from work. Right? So a lot of times, fellas, I don't think we take into consideration the mental capacity of working a 9 to 5, right? Statistically, if you look at relationships and you look at marriages, this is a stat. You can look this up, fellas. Couples where the man is an entrepreneur versus a man that's working a 9 to 5 has a longer expectancy and a lower divorce rate. So if you are an entrepreneur, your marriage is going to be more successful than you working a 9 to 5. And it's not necessarily always the income standpoint. It's because when you working 40 hours a fucking week, slaving, clocking in and clocking out to a job that you're not passionate about, you're going to come home mad sometimes. Right? I find myself sometimes like being pissed off for no reason, just because of work. Right? Like, why do you want to give that control to somebody else? Why do you want to limit that freedom in the hands of somebody else, bro? Like, that's fucking crazy. Right? It's literally modern day slavery, fellas. And it's not talked about enough. This is why most men are average. Most men don't maximize their income. Most men are fat and out of shape. Most men aren't happy with their day in life. It's because the hardest thing as a man, fellas, and what's not talked about enough is what you do from the hours of 5 to 9. A lot of men, bro, they don't reach their full potential because from the hours of 9 to 5, they doing something they hate to do. They're mentally stressed out once they get off, right? So they're not going to make the choice to do deep work. They're not going to make the choice to hit the gym. They might start an argument with their girl because they pissed off about work. They might be a bad parent to their kids because they pissed off about work. Right? So the mental freedom, bro, is probably the biggest freedom and the biggest aspect that a lot of people don't take into consideration. As men, we're logical, but there's times where we can be emotional as well. I don't think people understand how much decision making, arguments, and just everyday activity is affected just from the hours you spent at work. just because you was working the job you hated. You also have less time with family and friends. Fellas, if you're working 40 hours a fucking week, right? And then you're trying to get out of your 9 to 5. So you're working on your purpose on the weekend. Or even if you're not working on your purpose on the weekend, you telling me you think it's fair to only have 2 fucking days to chill with your family and friends? Right? Or those 2 hours after work to chill with your family and friends before you eat and fucking go back the next day? Like, that's fucking crazy, man. When I think about entrepreneurship, one thing that I always hear them say is like, man, I get to spend a lot of time with my kids, right? Or I only got to work 4 hours a day, then I get to spend time with my girls, spend time with my wife, spend time with my mom. Like, as a man, you should be thriving to get the fuck up out of that. I'm not a big vacation person, fellas. Like, I don't enjoy going out of town. And it's not that I don't enjoy going out of town. It's because I hate the idea of, oh, I have to go on vacation to enjoy my life. Like, I'm big on creating a life I don't have to vacate from, right? As a man, you should be striving to create a life you don't have to vacate from, bro. What the fuck do I look like putting in 10 days of PTO and I get to go relax out of town for 3 days, then come back to slaving for somebody else? Like, that sounds nuts to me, right? I'd rather be doing something that I love on an everyday basis, working at least 2 to 4 hours a day, and then spending the rest of the time with my family or the rest of the time at the gym. And fucking, I can go to fucking Cabo and work if I want to because I have the time and location freedom. That should be what you're striving for, fellas, right? Not the fucking shit you're doing now, clocking in and clocking out and having to rely on somebody to approve your fucking PTO, putting your fucking freedom and time in somebody else's hands. And they can say no. They can say, no, you don't get this time off. Like, that's crazy to me. Like, as a man, bro, you should try to have as much control as possible over your time and your freedom, over everything, really, right? And with the 9 to 5, you have no control over that, bro. Number 2, retirement. This is probably the most eye-opening point, man. And if this doesn't change your perspective, if this doesn't light a fire under your ass to get the fuck out of your 9 to 5 as soon as possible and also retire your fucking parents as soon as possible, I don't know what the fuck will, fellas. So I want to break down some numbers for you. People start working at the ages from 18 to 25, right? In the US. I'm gonna make sure I say US this time. I know I was talking about I said a world population number in my last video and it was just the US. Y'all put me in my place, so I'm gonna make sure I be more specific this time. So in the United States, people start working from 18 to 25, right? The average retirement age in the US is 64. The average life expectancy in the US, 73. So what does this mean, fellas? You work 40 years of your life, then you retire and get to enjoy your life for 9 years. So I broke down the percentages, fellas. Basically, man, with working a 9 to 5, you're gonna work for 54% of your life and enjoy fruits of your labor for 12% of your life. That is fucking insane, right? Like, I look at my grandfather, man. Like, my grandfather was working hard as fuck for Allstate for 40 years. And he's just now able to vacation when he wants to, do things with his wife when he wants to, right? And he was working harder than a lot of motherfuckers today. A lot of entrepreneurs, that's the thing. You're not always compensated for how hard you work. You compensated for getting in the right vehicle. So due to my grandfather not being in the right vehicle, having to work for 40 years, slaving for a 401k, at 60, he gets to retire and enjoy himself. My grandfather, according to the stats, he only got about 10 more years to enjoy his time. That's fucking crazy. That is fucking insane. Like, do you know that there's entrepreneurs? Do you know that there's men that's retiring at 30, retiring at 35, retiring at 40, retiring their parents, right? I speak a lot about making $100K a month, driving a Urus, living in a condo. Fellas, I can honestly say my biggest motivation, my biggest standard is retiring my mother and my father. I hate the fact that my mother and father work and are dependent upon somebody else for their freedom and somebody else to enjoy their life, enjoy their time, enjoy their freedom, have mental clarity, right? Neither of my parents do something that they love to do. That shit irks me every fucking day. I would probably say that's my biggest motivator. As a man, how is that not your biggest motivator, bro? How do you not want to retire the person that brought you into this world? How do you not want to do that? And not only that, for those that want kids, how do you not want to pave the way and tell your kids, hey, I got it figured out. I'm not bringing you in this world to work 40 hours a week, right? And work for 40 years and then have 10 years to enjoy yourself. Right? It's bigger than just us, fellas, man. Like, let's create a legacy for the people that's coming after us, our children, and also the people that created us. As a man, that's what you should strive to do, bro. When I see niggas online buying their mom houses, retiring their mom, like that's the shit that inspired me, bro. How does that not inspire you, bro? Why the fuck would you want to live like this? Right? You should be spending all your time allocated in the morning, at night, from 5 to 9, outside of the gym, figuring out what is my purpose? How can I get out of my 9 to 5? What can I do to replace this income? What do I love to do that doesn't feel like work that I can use to replace this income so I can have the freedom, so I can retire early, so I can retire my mom, right? So I can set a good example for my kids, so I can spend time with my kids when they get here. Right? Like, do y'all think about this shit, bro? It's just fucking insane, bro. And this is what they build you up to be. You go to school to be an employee. You go to college to be an employee. Right? Like, don't fall into the system. They want you to be average, bro. Whether it's the school systems, whether it's the entertainment, whether it's the alcohol, whether it's social media, right? They make it so easy to be comfortable and just be accustomed to, okay, I'll go to work. I'll enjoy myself when I get home. I'll enjoy myself on the weekend. I can buy what I want to buy. I got an average crib. I got an average car. I can beat my meat if I want to. That's the way they want you to live. Don't fall accustomed to that, bro. Don't fall in that mediocrity. Right? It's uncomfortable, right? Not beating your meat, not watching Netflix, not feeding into social media, doing your deep work, working on your purpose, hitting the gym. It's hard to do, but it's worth it, bro, because you're adding time to your future, right? You're adding time that your mom could be on vacation enjoying yourself, right? You're adding time you could be spending with your future kids. Right? So as a man, why would the fuck would you want to work for 54% of your life and only enjoying yourself for 12% of your life? You only get one of these motherfuckers. You only get one life. You got to be passionate about everything you do, and you got to take it one day at a time, win the daily tiny battles, and do whatever you got to do to get the fuck out of your 9 to 5. Like, this should be the last year all of y'all working 9 to 5. This is the last year I work a 9 to 5. I refuse to work a 9 to 5 in 2026. I don't give a fuck what I gotta do. It's a non-negotiable for me. It should be a non-negotiable for you as well. Number 3, financial limitations. Fellas, unless you're working a job where you're in sales or you receive performance incentives, you are capped out in a 9 to 5. You have to think about it from a business perspective. Imagine I'm the CEO with my YouTube channel, right? And I pay somebody to edit my video. Let's say I make $1,000 a month from YouTube, and I pay somebody to edit my videos, and I'm paying them $100 a month, right? And I want to stay above 50% profit margin. So that means I want to make at least $500 a month, right? With paying them, right? So they're capped out at $500 a month. That is the most I'm ever going to pay them. It doesn't matter how good they do. They could be the best videographer of all time. They could work for me for 10 years, but they're never going to earn more than $500 a month because I have to hit my margins as a business owner. That is the same thing with your 9 to 5, right? You're limited at a certain amount. Yeah, you may get promoted. Yeah, you may get promoted, but there is a cap. Unless you're in sales, there's a cap. Right? So a lot of this freedom, a lot about retiring our parents, a lot about having time and location freedom. Yeah, that's cool. But we also want to have the funds to experience life, right? To drive a certain type of car, to live in a certain type of house. Maybe it's clothes. Maybe it's jewelry. Like, a lot of people put a lot of red flags on these material things. I don't believe in that. I don't see nothing wrong in liking nice things if you work hard for them. Right? As long as that's not your idol, as long as you don't worship the nice things. Right? But it's nothing wrong when you work hard and you elevate your clothes, you elevate your jewelry, you elevate your house or somebody close to you. That's amazing. But you can't do that in your 9 to 5. You are limited. Right? You might get a promotion. Whip-de-doo. You're still capped out. One thing you have to understand, man, from a business perspective, bro, it doesn't matter how good you are in your job. You're always being compensated for less than what you're worth. Always. That's how a business is a business. That is business. I say I bought this phone for $50, right? And I paid somebody to sell it for $100, right? So I made $50 once they sold it. For me to make more money than what I bought it for, I would have to pay them less than what they're worth. Does that make sense? That's all these 9 to 5s do. So it doesn't matter how good you are in your job, bro. You're being paid for less than what you're worth for so they can be profitable. Does that not bother y'all? That no matter what you're being paid for less work than you do? For less than what you're worth, right? The only way you get paid for what you're worth is within entrepreneurship, bro. You're never going to get paid what you're worth within working a 9 to 5 unless you're in sales. That's the only way. Another thing to take into consideration with financial limitation is taxes, right? Working a 9 to 5, you're a W-2 employee. So what that basically means is that your taxes are automatically deducted right when you receive your paycheck. So that means you can't deduct work expenses. You can't deduct expenses like gas. You can't deduct expenses like Wi-Fi or food purchases or anything like that, like entrepreneurs can. Business owners receive their income first and then write off all of those expenses. So when, as a business owner, fellas, like when I receive a paycheck from YouTube, I don't have to pay taxes on it until the very end of the year, right? And most of the stuff I can write off, so I'm not paying any taxes, right? Like all of the tax benefits are made for entrepreneurs. They're not made for people that work a 9 to 5. Working a 9 to 5, you have no tax benefits. A lot of times your taxes be the majority of your fucking paycheck. The average deduct tax for a US employee is 15%. Let's say you make $50,000 a year, right? They're taking out $7,500 from taxes. So you're only bringing home $42,500, right? So with the 9 to 5, fellas, you're not even bringing home what your fucking salary is. They taking out 15%. That's fucking insane, right? It was a stat I looked like yesterday that in the US, the average 9 to 5 worker cannot afford a 2-bedroom apartment. That is fucking insane, right? Like who wants to work? Like, yeah, you got a salary of $50,000, but they taking out $7,500. Right? And one thing about a 9 to 5, the more money you make, you're in a different tax bracket. So yeah, you look at people lawyers that's making $250K, but 15% is higher with them. It's more like 20 to 25%, right? So the more income you make within a 9 to 5, the more they take out of your taxes. That is nuts. Bottom line, fellas, 9 to 5 employees get taxed first and then spend after. And entrepreneurs get their income first, spend what they want to spend first, and then get taxed after. The system is set up to help the richer get richer and help the poorer get poorer when you're working a 9 to 5. That's fucking crazy, bro. The last point I want to go over is dependency. One thing you got to understand, fellas, man, with working a 9 to 5 is like, you're not special, bro. Like, they can replace you. You can die tomorrow and be replaced and they don't give a fuck, right? Like you're dependent on them for your paycheck. If anything goes wrong, you are fucked, right? Versus entrepreneurship, if something goes wrong, you're in full control, right? Fellas, I've been in the darkest times of my life because I was let go from a fucking job because I was dependent on a fucking job for income, right? I'll give y'all a story, man. I was working for a startup company in 2021, right? I was performing extremely well, right? I was the best person within my position, was hitting all the quotas, had got a raise within 60 days, was killing it, right? But one thing you got to understand, I was working for a startup company. So with a startup company, like they have to rely on investments and funding from vendors to be profitable, right? So it got to a point where they did layoffs, right? So within that layoff, my manager lost her job and every other person besides me that worked my role lost their job. I was the only person within my role that was left with the company, right? And I had a new manager, right? I was told after that layoff, hey, yo, your job is safe. Like, we need you, right? Fellas, I worked for about 8 more weeks. In the span of that 8 weeks, my new manager, her job, she learned everything that I did. She learned how to do everything I did. Once she learned everything I could do, they let me go to save more money, right? After I was told my job was safe, right? And I lost that job at it. Imagine thinking you good, fellas, right? Thinking like, oh, I'm good. Like they just did layoffs. They told me my job's safe. I'm good. You're not preparing for shit to go left. I think I had even got a new car around this time, right? So I got a higher car note at this time. Like, oh shit, cool. X, Y, and Z. We're letting you go. Right? Like that happens a lot, fellas, a lot. Y'all be thinking y'all job care about you. They don't give a fuck about you, my nigga. They will let you go tomorrow. Why would you want to put your dependency? Why would you want to put your financial situation? Why would you want to put your fucking well-being in the place of somebody else's hands as a man? Right? So let me dig a little deeper, right? So then, just off of me losing that job, and, even though I was doing everything right, I had to start another job that I hated, another job that I really didn't like, right? And I was underperforming in that job. Then they let me go, right? That put me in another darkest time of my life, right? So just think about it. I was put in the two of the darkest times of my life, literally, fellas, all because a company wanted to save some money. Like, really think about that. Like, they didn't give a fuck. And I'm gonna keep it a buck. At the time when I lost that bitch, I'm emailing the CEO. Like, I'm pissed off. That nigga didn't give a fuck. These companies don't give a fuck about you, dog. You not special. And especially with AI, man. Like, if you working at a factory or something that can be replaced with hard labor, like, you better get on your shit, dog. Right? Because a lot of these companies gonna start paying robots to do your job. I see it within my role now. Like, a lot of the stuff we do is so automated, so fast paced, so AI reliant. Like, it's going to come to a point where they replace you, right? So what value can you provide that is irreplaceable within the marketplace that AI cannot replace? That's something to keep in mind as well. Like, shit is constantly changing, bro. Right? Like, with the 9 to 5, you so dependent, bro. Like, it was so many people, COVID happened, they lost their job. Right? What if something like that happened again? Right? Like, that's the stuff you got to think about, bro. It's with working a 9 to 5, you're not in control, bro. You're dependent on somebody else that don't give a fuck about you. Right? Like, everybody is trying to get it for themselves, bro. It's competitive. Right? So people got to feed their family. That company, they had to feed their family, bro. They said, oh, he making this much. We know what he do. Let's let him go so we can save more money. Right? Like, it's really grimy out here, bro. And I'm giving you an example with me to let y'all know, like, I was in the darkest times of my life because I was being let go from a job. Because I was dependent on a job. Right? Like, I refuse to let that happen again, bro. I've had the darkest times of my life working for somebody I didn't want to work for. Like, doing something that I hated. Right? Like, I don't want y'all to live like that. Like, I want y'all to create a plan, create a 1 to 2 year plan. Okay, I'm locked in before my work hours and after my work hours, working on something that's going to get me out of my situation. Replace my 9 to 5 income with my purpose. That's what you should be focused on as a man. Right? Because as you can see, it's so many harsh truths that a lot of men don't take in consideration with their future. Right? With their parents, with their kids. Right? So that's the video for today, man. I wanted to provide to y'all the 4 harsh truths of working your 9 to 5. If you want more clarity on how to get out of your 9 to 5, entrepreneurship vehicles align with what you love to do, that's something I'm working on in my one-on-one mentorship, where you'll be able to work with me on that to find your purpose, find what you like to do, and learn how to do it at the highest level, right? So if you want to be a part of that and you want to work with me one-on-one, DM me 1% with your first, last name, and email, and I'll add you to the waiting list. So once it launches, you'll know right away, fellas. But that's the video for today. I love y'all. Peace.